Hey guys, I'm Prince Rich with Rich Technology Group, and in today's video, we are going to answer the question, why is my office high-speed internet so slow during specific times of the day? I wanted to do a video about this one because I have seen this question asked on YouTube, Twitter, Quora, and Facebook many times. People either asking why or complaining about why is their internet so slow during only a specific time during the day. So we're going to discuss this, and I'm going to go into three potential reasons why your internet may be really slow only at specific times. Now, if you're watching this and your internet is slow all the time, then the points I'm going to go over don't really apply. That means that you probably need a new service provider, or you need to get with your service provider and find out why are they not delivering to you the speeds that you're paying for. It could be, a shortfall on their part. It could be something on your network that needs to be looked at, or that you need to get your IT guys to look at, like a bad router or a bad wire or something like that. So let's get into the reasons why your internet would be slow during a specific time of the day, and 3 points specifically. Number one, business applications and automatic updates from Windows. I'm going to give you an example of this one on how I identified one. Basically, what I mean by business application updates and automatic Windows updates is, quite frankly, you've got something on your network that you're not aware of scheduled for automatic updating, like Windows updates for all of your computers, say, on the network. For some of you that may be watching this that are a home office or a real small office that only has like maybe two computers, this one may not hurt you so bad. For those of you who are watching that may be mid-sized, bigger, smaller offices, or mid-sized offices, or much larger offices that have 20 computers, 50 computers, or even hundreds of computers, if you've got that many computers that, let's say, for example, are all scheduled to do an automatic update at the same time, and they're pulling down updates from Windows or pulling down updates for a proprietary business application that you use to run your business at the same time, that eats up an enormous amount of bandwidth. So if you were to start finding that, let's say, during like 2:30 p.m. in the evening, you start seeing major spikes, and then your IT staff identified that your proprietary software that, let's say, handles your in-house appraisals, your real estate appraisals, or your mortgage lending quotes, or whatever, your software starts doing these massive downloads to all of these computers at one time, you would feel the burn from that on the network. Help desk would probably be getting dozens of people messaging help desk saying, why does the internet suck so bad right now? Let me give you an example of how I identified this, and this is also going to give some insight into those of you who are watching this that are not the IT person for the company or not IT savvy, how you could possibly identify this. In my home office, I have a router that is a business class router that has a function in it that allows me to go and see a routing table, and I can see every single device on the network. I can see phones, I can see other computers, laptops, desktops, anything that is pulling an IP address from my router on the network. I can see it in a list, and I can see what its IP address is, and I can see what its name is as well. Most importantly, I can see its internet and bandwidth usage on the network. A few months back in my home office, I had a thing where, for whatever reason, every single Friday, somewhere between like 3:50 and 5 o'clock p.m., my internet would get so slow. I would look at my wife and be like, oh my God, what is going on with the internet? And I would even message my provider thinking it was them. On a normal day, I'm supposed to get somewhere around like 9.5 megabytes down in my home office, but I've gotten as high as 20 megabytes down and sometimes 22. But at this particular point, I was only getting somewhere in the ballpark of like 3 megs down. It was like 2.6 to 3 megs down, which something was wrong. For weeks and weeks, I kept messaging my internet provider saying, the typical, this is not what I'm paying for. You guys need to get on this. I do this for a living. I sell internet, so I know it's not my network. And then I had to give them a huge apology, and I did formally apologize to them and tell them, hey, I'm so sorry, about how I lashed out. It was something on our network. You guys are doing good. Keep doing what you're doing. I was able to, through my router, see the list of nodes, and I found out that my kid's MacBook Pro was doing these massive updates on Friday evenings. Come to find out, it was doing updates like trying to download macOS. It was scheduled in the program to do automatic updates on things like macOS High Sierra, download updates for the App Store, download updates for iTunes, download updates for iMovie, and the list goes on and so forth. The kids' games and all that stuff. So I went in and set it for another time where it would do it in the middle of the night when nobody was, on the computers. So for those of you who are watching this for point number one, it being an application or automatic updates or something like that, if you don't know how to check something like that in your router, I would highly advise that you get with your IT guys and get them to check the network, and they'll be able to tell you what's hogging up the bandwidth and what application or computer or computers is doing it. If you're watching this and you are the IT guy, then you already know how to go and fix that. I would recommend that you schedule those updates for off times. Schedule it for Saturdays at 2 a.m. when you know nobody's going to be in the office. If it's a program that requires updates every day, schedule it for every day at 2 a.m. in the morning when you know nobody's going to be in the office. And then that should take the load off of the network while you guys are working and while you're doing what you need to do. Point number two, that one employee that has really, really crappy internet at his home office or at his house, and he saves all of his personal downloads for the corporate office network. This is a really rough, tough one, because here's the thing here, and this one plays off of the first one. For this one, you really need, what's the best way to put this? As someone who's an employer myself and has a sales team, I don't like to point the fingers at anybody. None of us as employers or as business owners like to go to somebody and place blame for anything. It's an uncomfortable position, but sometimes it has to be done. However, and this is my advice as somebody who owns and has ran a business for years as well, when it has to be done, you need to know for sure that the person that you think is the culprit behind this, you need to know definitively, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that is the person, that is the one that is hurting the network, that is downloading a bunch of stuff for personal pleasure that is not work related, and that is putting a strain on the internet, which in turn causes a loss of productivity for everybody in the office. How do you do this? If you're watching this and you're the IT guy, I don't have to lecture you. You already know how to do this and know exactly who on the network is doing it and what computer it's coming from, and you can probably even find out exactly what it is they're downloading. For those of you who are watching this that are not computer savvy or that are not tech savvy, I would highly advise that you get with your IT person or consult with an IT person to help you find out exactly who the person or persons are that are doing this, because nobody likes to be blamed. Nobody likes to blame anybody in a happy, comfortable work environment for something that they may or may not be doing. So that's what I recommend for that one. Point number three, and this is also a difficult one, bandwidth sharing with your ISP. This is a difficult one because there's not really much you can do about this one, but I just want you guys to know that it exists, that this happens, unfortunately. But there's not much you can do about this one, but put heat on your internet service provider, whoever that may be, and just tell them, hey, this is not what I'm paying for. So let me explain what bandwidth sharing is. For those of you who are watching this, that let's say you work in an office park or something like that, the way that it works is if you're in an office park, you already know that you're in there with hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of other businesses that are in that same area with you that may be using the carrier that you use. What happens is when they get on that network, you're all basically pulling your bandwidth from the same pool of available bandwidth that your provider, whether it be Comcast or Cox Communications or whatever, has allotted to you within that specific area from what they call their CO. So basically the way that these ISPs work is they have these buildings that they call a CO that's got a whole crap load of bandwidth and servers and machinery in it that's producing the available bandwidth and internet for a given area or zip code. And then everybody in that area or zip code is sharing that. So what ends up happening is you are experiencing the effects of what we call peak time. Peak times are usually lunchtime, 12 o'clock noon, sometimes between 8 o'clock and 10 o'clock, 8 o'clock a.m. and 10 o'clock a.m. in the morning. And the most dreaded peak time, which most of you who have high-speed connection that live in a home, in a subdivision, you are very familiar with, is sometime between like 5 o'clock p.m. and 7 o'clock p.m. If you're watching this and you're on a corporate internet connection, you probably don't suffer from this as much. You probably see some spikes, but nothing that's worth complaining about to your ISP, because you are in an office park or in a commercial complex where they have anticipated businesses in an area have a high usage of bandwidth, so they have put the backbone in place to be able to handle the ups and downs and the fluctuations in peak time of when lots of executives and corporate professionals are on the internet and when lots of them aren't. They have the backbone to handle it. For those of you who are watching this that you have a home office and you are using a residential broadband, you're not using a business package, which in our opinion is a no-no, and we'll cover that in a whole nother video, a whole nother day, on why even if you are a home-based business, you should be using a business package for your home base. You should be paying that extra 10 to 20% for the better service and the better speed. We'll get into that another day, but if you are one of those people that's watching this, that you run a home office and you're using the residential package from your carrier to run your business, you are suffering from the peak time of everybody waking up in the morning in your neighborhood and getting on the internet to check the sports daily news, to check the local news in your area, to download their favorite MP3s to put on their iPod before they head off to work and such and such. You are basically sharing the same internet with all of those folks, the same circuit with them when they hit that network hard. You probably noticed, for those of you watching that fall into this category of the home-based business that's on a residential package that lives in a large subdivision or a largely populated area, you probably noticed that your bandwidth gets really bad, probably close to half of what you're actually paying for. And in some cases, we've seen people get half of what they're paying for between the hours of 5 to 7 p.m. in the evening, because you're dealing with people's kids coming home from school. They're hitting the internet, they're hitting Netflix, they're Skyping with their girlfriends, their moms and dads are coming home from work, they're hitting Netflix, they're catching up on ESPN, they're catching up on the latest golf scores, the latest basketball scores, the latest football stuff, things like that. You are basically falling into the peak time of people's personal time when they dominate the amount of internet that's been allotted to you for an entire area. So those are the 3 points. Let's talk about, in summary, some ways on how you can resolve some of these. Well, we already talked about the first one. If you are if you've fallen prey to automatic updates on your network, you just need to get with your IT guys and figure out, when are those things scheduled for? Are they scattered all around the place? And can they be consolidated and rescheduled by your IT staff or by you for a time that is that you guys are just not in the office, or that you're not working on anything in the office? If so, problem solved there. As far as the one for the employee, you should fire that employee. No, I'm just kidding. You shouldn't fire the employee. Again, like I said, you should get with your IT people. You should come up with definitive proof of who the person or persons are that are downloading whatever it is they're downloading and dominating the network. And then you should approach them and talk to them about either doing that during a different time or just not doing it at all if it's something that's not work related, or that's quite simply not productive and not what you're paying them to do while they're at work. And then the last one, the bandwidth sharing one. If you are a commercial company and you have a commercial package where you are paying the extra money to have a decent pool allotted to you and have some sort of dedicated bandwidth to conduct business, the best thing that I can tell you to do is you need to get with your ISP. You need to get on the phone with them or drop them an email if you can contact them in that manner, and send them a speed test. Don't simply just call them up and say, this is what I'm getting. ISPs, internet service providers, don't work that way. The proof is in the pudding. They want to see proof. I would recommend that you use a website like speedtest.net or speedof.me. Again, that's speed of like Wizard of Oz, .me for me, as in me, myself. And do a speed test there. Those are 2 of the most reliable speed tests that we use that are out there nationwide. Whenever we have somebody that either doesn't know what their speeds are or they say they don't think they're getting what they're paying for, we tell them, go to those sites. Take a screenshot I would do 2 tests. That way you can send them two, so they can't tell you something like, oh, that's not correct and we don't like that website. I usually prefer to do 3 speed tests from 3 different carriers, from 3 different speed providers online that show the same speed, so that I can, beyond a shadow of a doubt, prove to the provider, hey, this is the speed that I'm getting. What are we going to do about this? Because that's, quite frankly, that's not what you're paying for. If you're paying for something different, if it's off by 1 megabyte or even 2 megabytes here and there, I'm going to tell you, as somebody who works in this industry, they're going to pretty much tell you to go sit in some sand. You really don't have a whole lot of play with them in that regard. If it is off by like 5 megabytes, 10 megabytes, or even more, you've got some play there, because quite frankly, you've got a contract with these guys. You're paying for what you're paying for. So take those 3 speed tests, send them an email with 3 screenshots from 3 different speed tests, so that you've got some comparisons, so they can't say, oh, that's not true or whatever, because 3 speed tests can't all be incorrect. And tell them, what are you going to do about this? For those of you who are watching this that are on a residential connection, the truth of the matter is if you tell them, yeah, this is what I'm doing and I run a business, they're going to tell you point blank, I'm sorry, you're on a contract and you're paying for residential service. Would you like to upgrade to a business connection? Again, we will cover that in another video later, of why those of you who are running a home office, you should be on a business connection. We'll cover that at a later video. But again, I hope that this video helped answer the question for any of you out there that are wondering why your internet gets so freaking slow at only specific times of the day. Again, I'm Prince Rich with Rich Technology Group. And if any of you have any problems with your phone or internet, or you'd like to talk to us about looking at other or better internet or phone system options in your area, hit me up. We're always here to help. And, subscribe. And thanks again for watching our channel.